Working on this book with you guys is like going to have dinner with writing wife, and I don't like her boyfriend.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. For those who don't know, my name is Sky. I typically write paranormal romance under the name SD Haggis. I don't currently have anything published. However, if you check out my website, you can sign up for my newsletter. And as of this moment, I am sending out a newsletter once a month, and it has a short story featured in it that gives you a little taste of what I can do. Welcome to Tarot Time. We're going to be doing something a little different this time. I've got some lovely co-hosts with me. They want to introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll tell you a little bit more about what we're exactly doing.
Hello, I am Amy Awesome Buddy. I decided to tweak my name a little bit. I am an SEO consultant who's just kind of starting my fiction writing journey. I've been friends with Sky for a really long time, so when I said I was going to take up writing, she kind of brought me into the community, and I also love tarot cards, so this is right up my alley, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
My name is Kara Brown. I'm an urban fantasy author and the operations director for Otherworld Inc. I have a book out right now when this video comes out. It's called The Queen of Sword and Silence. It's part of the Ghostwalker Chronicles. Future people who might be coming in and seeing this, I have a website called, karabrown.com, and on there you'll find my other works if you're interested. I was invited into this project because I met these two lovely ladies and they said, hey, we want to do a thing. Do you want to do the thing with us? And I said, yes, I will do the thing with you.
And speaking of the thing we're going to be doing is this is going to be a workshop. We're going to be going through the book called Tarot for Writers by Corinne Kenner. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right. We all know that both Kara and I have some issues with names. So
true. Yes.
Maybe we're right. Maybe we're wrong. But basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through and doing the exercises of these books in each of these episodes. All of us have a different background in both writing and tarot and our experiences with them. And so we're trying to combine the two in interesting ways.
The book is essentially a series of exercises to help with you brainstorming on a writing project. And she gives you spreads and some ideas of how to use a traditional 78 card tarot deck to give you ideas to then use in the context of your brainstorming. That's what we are going to be doing. Is throughout the course of this series, we'll be going through and doing them in some chunks to kind of gather our ideas and organize them. She's got this book set up where you can come into this project with a seed of an idea, and through these exercises you just keep adding layers and building it up. She's just giving you a way to use tarot cards to stimulate your ideas.
And on top of that, not only could you come in with just the seed of idea, you can take a story that you've already been working on maybe and you're stuck at some point and add on to it to further help you get past writer's block, or even just to flesh out an idea better that you already have.
Absolutely, yes. She does have these exercises grouped together on topics like character or setting or conflict, where you could take your work in progress and say, I want to add some depth to this character, or I want to give a little bit more context to this setting, going through and conducting these exercises and applying them to our own stories.
I've been working with tarot cards, I think, pretty much since I was an early teen. It just started off as a hobby, and then I kind of stuck with it because I really like all the symbolism that you see in the art of the card. And as far as my writing experience, I was always a hobby writer, and then when I turned 30, I started to try and pursue it professionally, and now I'm here.
My writing history is honestly limited. I was a freelance writer for about 6 years, but I did ghostwriting mostly, and it was mostly expository writings. My foray into fiction didn't start until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I wrote a series of TV scripts for a TV idea that I've been thinking about for like 20 years of my life. And then I just kind of liked it. So I started writing more fiction. For me, it's still currently a hobby. That is also kind of how I got into tarot cards. It was something cool and I wanted to try it out. And it's been a hobby for about 15 years now for me. I still have to use resources though. Even though I've been doing it this long, I still do not have the cards memorized. That's actually not too bad for this series and this book. It still works, even though I'm experienced with tarot. The meanings are still not implanted in my brain.
And my experience with writing is I've been writing for about 20 years now. Although I've been writing for 20 years, I have not been trying to aim for anything professionally until about 10 years ago. I was originally published with a couple of small presses that have since closed their doors, and now I'm pursuing indie publishing instead. As far as tarot goes, I've been messing around with cards off and on for 2 years, more off than on, so I am almost pretty much a newbie as far as tarot cards go, which is going to be fun. It takes me forever to interpret the cards, even though I'm good at drawing them really quick. I just can't. I can't.
But don't be too hard on yourself though, because I think that's part of what brings good discussions to the table. Because when you have like people like me and Amy who've been doing this for a while, having a fresh set of eyes on cards can always bring forth different meanings and things like that. So don't be like, I'm new and I don't know what I'm doing. What you're really doing is you're kind of experiencing it for the first time, and you occasionally teach me and Amy some stuff too.
Yeah.
Several ahead and talk about the projects we'll each be working on. I think we all three are starting with brand new projects. Originally, when we started talking about doing this, I had an idea to start on a project that I have a cover for already that just needs to be updated. Since then, I have completely changed my mind and I'm going with a different story idea entirely. I'm going to be working on a paranormal romance that's actually probably closer to urban fantasy than paranormal romance, called An Elixir of Life. It deals with a necromancer. As far as how much plotting I've done into the story, it's pretty much none at all. I have the basis of an idea to work with, and that's pretty much it. I don't even think I've named this character. She has just been called the Necromancer all this time. I am pretty much starting from scratch.
I am really starting from scratch too. I have a kind of like a 2-sentence idea for a story. A modern magic setting where magic has resurfaced into the world, and it is far enough along that magic is accepted. It's not going to be one of those stories where boom, magic is like, oh my god, where did it come from? People have accepted that there's all kinds of magical beings and stuff like that in the society. I have a setting that I think would be really fun, and a group of people that I think would be really fun, maybe, but I haven't even fleshed out the group of people. So essentially, I just know that it's going to be a modern magic story, and I have a really cool setting, and I kind of had a nugget of an idea of where to go with the story, but I really didn't. I approached this project as brand new. No prompts, no nothing. I just decided to go with, okay, well, I know this is going to be my setting. What kind of story am I going to tell in this setting? That's where I am in this project, and that's where I'll be putting all of my exercises into, is just general formulation of plot.
The project that I'm going to do, I literally translated the cards 20 minutes before we started actually recording, so that was exciting. My story actually involves somebody who got very comfortable in life and they ended up taking things for granted, and because of that, people that were very important to them ended up walking from them, which forced them to have to transform. So I'm not sure if I want to keep it as a contemporary story, if I want to try and throw some other elements in there. There's a different spread that we did that will probably answer that for me, but that's pretty much the gist of the story that I've got.
Go ahead and talk about the decks we're going to be using. I know I am personally using a deck that I got as a Christmas present. It's called the Spellcasters Tarot. While I love it, it's got really pretty artwork. It is one of those decks that the back of the cards, you can tell which way it's facing. So I know with this deck personally, I am going to be using it just as with tarot, people can use them either upright or reverse, and I'm just going to use them in the upright position because that'll just go so much easier for me as I'm doing things.
I am going to be using the Cosmos Tarot and Oracle deck produced by Light Gray Art Lab. It is an amazing deck. I am absolutely in love with it, but Sky and Caro have both seen the deck, and they both have very different reactions to the deck. It's 100 cards, 78 traditional cards, and a 22 Oracle deck came with it. And it's 100 cards based on 100 different constellations. Each card is made by 100 different artists. That's what's so special about it visually, is that no two cards look the same. It's 100 different people, and so 100 different art styles. And I was really excited to use this deck for this project because I have so little idea of where to go with this project. I am going to be leaning on the visual elements to kind of stimulate my mind in different ways. I've had the deck for a little over a year now, and I'm still absolutely in love with it. Sky looked at it and was like, that's just too much for me. And Caro hears
Every
monks
time.
chanting whenever
Yeah.
she sees it.
Oh, yeah, it's monk chanting, and it goes along the lines of "Stay in your lane, bitch." So it stays in the box in my office, and I think I've only pulled it out like maybe 4 times.
I didn't realize you had the same deck.
Amy's recommended 2 decks to me, and one I use pretty often. The other one, which is the Cosmos deck, I'm just kind of like, you just stay in your box. Okay, you just stay there. And if I have like a really big like universe question, I'll come over and talk to you. Not to do a shameless plug, but I am going to do a series that kind of mirrors this one where I focus a bit more on card. And you will find that people have different relationships with cards. Like I had a deck where I was just like, the deck just constantly gave me the finger, and I gave it to my best friend, and that deck loves her. So, it was obviously meant to be.
That's another thing that really why I chose this deck for this project, is because it does make my mind go in 20 different directions, and it does seem to tell me 20 different things every time. That's an important part of selecting a deck, I think, for a writing project like this, is selecting a deck that your brain is comfortable with. Caro would never be able to use this deck without hearing that constant chanting, and Sky still looks at it and goes, okay, this is not unified enough for me. It's a little too scattered. So make sure when you're trying to pick a deck for this project that you use one that is in your lane, because it'll be a lot easier if you do.
Your deck is really pretty, but no.
Your deck tells me to stay in my lane, so I just listened to it. Speaking of decks, my deck that I'm actually going to use is the Last Unicorn Tarot card. I got this deck recently after telling myself I was never going to spend more than $70 on a deck of cards, and then I spent $70 on a deck of cards. But I am a shameless I keep wanting to say last little unicorn. I am a shameless Last Unicorn fan, and I love everything about it. And the moment I saw the artwork on the cards, I was just like, I have to have it. And when I did the interview with the deck made it very clear it was going to be used for storytelling purposes only. And so that's why I'm using that deck. Now I'm using that deck, but I'm also, while I use the book that came with the deck, I also kind of lean really heavy on the kitchen table tarot, just because the friendly approach in the kitchen table mirrors a lot of the way that I see the cards, and it makes it seem more personable to me. The book that came with the deck is actually really good, and it has a lot of good symbolism in it, but I just like the flexibility of the other book too. So if I'm not sure about one definition, I just kind of flip-flop between the 2 books.
I will be using both the book that came with it, because the book that comes with the deck has a lot of information about the story that's being told in the image. And that's, another layer of stimulation. And I will also be using a website called thetarotguide.com, because this woman has taken the time to go through and explain the meaning of each card in multiple aspects, like spirituality, health, money, and career, love and relationships. And so she goes really in depth with this card. And I highly recommend that source to everybody. It's great, especially when you're learning, because sometimes it's hard to take some of those like vocabulary words that come with a card and apply those vocabulary words to a situational context. And she kind of does all that for you, so that my brain doesn't have to struggle with card meanings in context. I'm going to be using the tarotguide.com and the book that came with it, so that I can, if a card does strike me as, hey, this is a really interesting card, what else can I use from this visual, I'll have the book to help me with that.
And I'm going to be the strange one, because I am just going to be using the book that came with my deck, because while I do other readings with other sources, I think for storytelling purposes, the meanings that go along with the cards that are in the book that came with it are actually pretty spot on from what I've noticing so far. Why not just use it? Let's go ahead and talk about this book. Some of us have interesting opinions about it. I know for me personally, Tarot for Writers is going to be an interesting book to use. I've already read through the whole thing one time. I read it, as of this recording, I read it last month. However, I know that when I got to the end of the book where it has a writer's guide to tarot cards, I started reading that portion of the book, and then I completely stopped reading it, because the meanings of the cards that Kenner uses is not the meanings that I have been learning along my own journey, and it was just confusing me and making it difficult. I think it's a good book for those who are both new to writing and tarot, but I don't I think for someone who's already been using both in their process, it's not necessarily going to fit with them and jive with them.
Which brings us to Caro.
So I feel kind of bad. I like the idea of the book, but I don't actually like the book. It's kind of like trying to write a cozy mystery backwards or pet a cat the wrong way. That's like the best way I can explain my reaction. And I think it's just because in the writing itself, I can see the author's relationship to the cards, which, you know, it's almost like somebody trying to talk me into eating peas, and I hate peas. And, you know, I hear you laughing. Stop it. The exercises I think are good, and I think that there is a lot for a new writer to take away from this. The author does take some steps in the book to actually explain a lot of the roles that happen within a story, and I think that's useful for somebody who is new to it and they're trying to work with typecasting and things like that. The definition that the author has for the cards definitely rubs me the wrong way, and again, that's where I'm kind of going back to. I can see the author's relationship with the cards. You know, for example, you know, some people kind of cringe when they see the Tower, and I don't cringe when I see the Tower. I actually see it as a good card. Again, that's my personal experience. That's really just the beef that I have with it. I think the exercises, again, I'm reiterating this, are good and can be useful if you're struggling, and I would encourage that. But if you're kind of like, if you're just starting this journey and you still don't know your cards very well, I would just kind of take a little bit of what the book says with a grain of salt until you've cemented your own meanings to the cards, if that makes any sense. I hope I don't come off as like some kind of elitist snob right now.
I understand Carol's point. I disagree a little bit. I think that what Kenner did was the last section of the book is the 78 cards and her interpretation of them. And Carol is absolutely right that she very much puts in her experience with the cards, but she's also trying to like customize those descriptions for writing purposes. When you flip through the back and just kind of look at all of them, you'll notice that all of the definitions are customized to writing. You know, she talks about like types of conflicts and stuff that very much, like Carol pointed out, can conflict with your personal experience with a card. Carol is tipping her hat at me because I do not get along with the Tower card. I do not like that card. It is never a positive card in my experience. But she explains the Tower card, Kenner does, in a way that makes sense as, okay, when you get the Tower card, know that it's going to be initiating a sequence of events. And then she goes on to explain it as an initiation of a sequence of events. Her meanings are, like Kara said, they are not great for everyday life or even you learning how to practice tarot yourself. But I do think that the book is a very one-stop shop for this idea. She has given you exercises and meanings of the cards where the only thing that you need is this book and a deck of cards. It's not to say that that's going to be a great start for your tarot journey or a great start for your writing journey, but I think it's an excellent book if you're familiar with both. You don't even have to be very experienced with both, just familiar with both. I think it's a really good bridge between the two. So I liked it. I wasn't like absolutely in love with it because there are a few things there's a few exercises she has in there that I think just kind of go a little more off topic, but she tells you that that's the point of them, is to stimulate your mind in different ways. So I liked it. I would give it like, you know, a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. And I only take a little bit off because she mentions it, but she doesn't really go into detail about how this book is meant specifically to merge these two ways of thinking, brainstorming, writing, and using tarot cards. She could be a little bit more clear about that.
I have a great metaphor. Working on this book with you guys is like going to have dinner with writing wife and I don't like her boyfriend. That's what this is like for me. I was just kind of thinking about, because you guys are talking about the book and I'm kind of like, no, I just don't like it. I just like, it's like putting up with my friend's boyfriend and I hate them. And I'm like, like, ah.
I was going to say, I like the exercises. I do not necessarily like the book. So I'm kind of halfway between both your guys' opinions. So I completely understand both sides. In future episodes, we're going to be going through the exercises with our own projects and doing our own interpretations with our cards and how they fit into our projects.
By the end of this book, I'm pretty certain that I personally am going to have the beginning of a legit outline for a story.
The first part of this book actually introduces how Kenner came up with the idea for Tarot for Writers. It actually started as a NaNoWriMo blog post, and then she just developed it further into a full-length book from that. The first part also talks about how and why to combine tarot with writing, as well as the basics of how to read and understand the meanings of the tarot cards in response to writing. Again, kind of like what both Amy and Carol were pointing out. The meanings in this book are not meant for like everyday tarot readings. It's just meant for how to implement it into writing and plotting and outlining.
And she does a good job of that.
So I'll go ahead and pose a question to the viewer right now. If they are kind of curious or if they have any experience with working with tarot cards and using it in storytelling, feel free to share that experience, or feel free to share your thoughts on trying this approach. There are some established authors that have used tarot cards when they are struggling with some of their plot points, and I'm just kind of curious if any of you have to go through that too. And if it's too personal, just say I have, and then don't give details unless you really want to. But still, we want to know because, well, at least I want to know because I'm nosy as fuck.
So in the next video, we're going to be doing the first couple of exercises that appear in the book. We'll be reviewing chapters 1 through 3. And on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. This is going to be an ongoing series as we go through the book. So stay tuned for the next episode if you're interested in participating in any of the exercises with us. But we're going to go ahead and say goodbye for now. So until next time, we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Laters, friends. Bye.
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 Someday over the rainbow.
And my train of thought just derailed.
Survivors! Remember, because I gave it to you in like November. I was so excited. I didn't want you to buy it for yourself.
Oh, yeah. God, you think I would remember these things. This is why I write shit down.
We just found our teaser.